All right. Hey, TikTok and Facebook, YouTube, all the rest. We are live. I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a political asylum lawyer. My law firm called Political Asylum Lawyers is based in Houston, but we help people all over the country to get asylum in the United States. All right. I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes about a really important immigration announcement that USCIS made recently that's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to affect a lot of my clients and a lot of you watching. By the way, before I get into that, let me know where you are. Say hello, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Give me a shout out. Tell me where you're watching from. All right. So again, I'm Brian Manning. I'm going to take your questions. So go ahead and start leaving them in the comments on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all the rest. Leave your questions, and then I'm going to get to them. But I want to say a couple of words first about this really important announcement that we recently got. Recently received from USCIS. Again, USCIS, if you don't know, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. That's the agency that handles affirmative asylum applications, meaning applications for asylum by people who are not in deportation proceedings. But they're also the agency that handles green cards. And that's what this announcement is about, is the green card. When I say green card, I'm referring to permanent residence, okay? So as you may know, once you win asylum, you got to wait for 1 year. And after 1 year, you can become a permanent resident, meaning you can get a green card. And you should do that, okay? It's kind of like permanent residence is the next step up after asylum. It's more stable. You get more benefits. It's better. Just trust me. You need to apply for it, okay, after you win asylum. And then after you get your permanent residence, 4 years later, you're eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship. So getting your green card after asylum is a step on the road to U.S. citizenship, right? Okay. So here's what the announcement said, okay? On YouTube, Rich Card says, I really like the job you do to make me ready for my asylum interview. I really like the job you did to make me ready for my asylum interview. Rich, how did I do that? You mean watching my YouTube videos, all my free training videos I have on YouTube? Or how did I help you? Let me know. But thank you for the comment. By the way, check out our YouTube channel if you want all kinds of free trainings. I've got some short, normal YouTube videos, but I've also got some really long, in-depth trainings about how to prepare for your asylum interview and other topics related to asylum. All right. So, all right, what was this announcement? So normally in the past, you had to wait a year before you could apply for your green card after having won asylum. So let's say you apply for, or let's say you win asylum, the asylum office or an immigration judge gives you asylum, let's say on July 1st, 2022. You would have to wait until July 1st of 2023 to mail in your green card application, your green card application that's based on your asylee status, right? If you sent it in before that, if they got it in June, on June 1st, instead of July 1st of 2023, they would deny it. USCIS would reject it. They would send it back to you and say, sorry, we can't accept this. You're not eligible for your green card yet. It hasn't been a year, okay? That's what the old policy was. New policy, though, is just according to this announcement just a few days recently, USCIS said, okay, never mind. You don't have to wait a year to apply. However, we cannot actually approve your green card application based on asylum until you have 1 year of physical presence in the United States after having been granted asylum. So after you win asylum, you have to, for 365 days, be in the United States. That's what they mean by physical presence. It's like literally you have to physically be inside of the United States for 365 days after having got asylum to be eligible to get your green card, okay? If you go on vacation, like let's say you, as an asylee, let's say you get a refugee travel document and you go on vacation to Canada or Mexico or whatever for a few days and you come back, well, those few days that you were gone, those do not count towards your 365 days. It's okay. They don't have to be 365 consecutive days, like in a row, rather cumulatively or added up together. You have to get to 365 days of physical presence to get your green card based on asylum. Now, what this announcement by USCIS did was it allowed for people to send their application in earlier at anytime you want after getting asylum. You could literally send it the next day after you win asylum. You could fill out your green card application and send it the next day. And USCIS will take it. They'll send you a receipt notice that says, thanks. We've received your green card application as of X day. We'll get back to you later on it. But you still have to satisfy the 1 year of physical presence requirement to actually win, to get your green card. Okay. What does that mean? If USCIS were to receive your green card application, let's say 6 months after you win asylum, and if they were to actually open it up and say, we're going to make a decision on John's green card application, they would deny it because you don't have 365 days of physical presence after having won asylum, because it hasn't even been a year. So you can't have 365 days of physical presence post asylum, right? So if they get to your application before you reach those 365 days, they're going to deny it. Here's the thing. It takes a long time for USCIS usually to adjudicate these green card applications. Usually someone applies and then they sit in the queue for a long time. I checked a few days ago, and current processing time, meaning how long it takes USCIS to make a decision on this kind of green card application, was like 3 years. Okay. It was over 3 years. So what that means is that if you were to send in your green card application, let's say 6 months after winning asylum, you could have pretty high confidence that they're not actually going to get to your application and consider it for a long time, for probably 3 years. And at that time, once they do finally get to it in 3 years, you'll have 365 days of physical presence. Now, your evidence that you have submitted with the application won't show that. You won't be able to prove that you have the necessary physical presence because you're applying before you have gotten that physical presence. But what USCIS will probably do in those cases is issue a request for evidence, where they send you this letter that says, hey, you applied and we need to see your 365 days of physical presence. Send us evidence about that. And you can send it in, and then they'll probably, if you otherwise qualify, they'll approve it, right? But so that's a thing that someone could do. And why would you want to do that? Well, because you're getting in line early. You're getting your place in the queue ahead of people who wait that whole year, or ahead of everyone else who applies after you. Because when USCIS accepts these green card applications, they do it on they put you in order of when you applied, and they work through them that way. So if you apply 6 months after getting your asylum, if you apply for a green card, then you're getting in line in the queue, that queue that's taking about 3 years to get through as of now. You're getting your place in line earlier than you would be if you were to wait another 6 months until you reach your 1 year. Okay. And so you're kind of gambling. You're saying, I'm going to send it in now and just hope that USCIS doesn't actually pick it up and adjudicate it. Because if they do, you're going to get denied probably, because you can't meet the 365 days of physical presence requirement, right? So it's like, okay, I'll send it in now and just hope they don't get to it for a while. But at least I'm getting my spot in line earlier than I would be if I waited several more months or a year. That's the idea. So what is the risk? I mean, the benefit is clear. The benefit is you might get your green card several months, or even 9 or 10 or 11 months sooner than you otherwise would have. What is the risk of doing that? Well, if they do get to it, your application, and look at it before you reach that 1 year of physical presence, then they'll probably deny it. And so what's the downside or the risk of that? Well, it's not the end of the world, because you can apply again. You can just send it. You can wait till you reach 1 year and you can send in a new application, but you lose your application fees. Okay. So the moment I'm making this, doing this live, the application fees are, I believe, $1,225, putting together all the different fees for the application form and the biometrics for someone who's between the ages of 14 and whatever it is, 79 or something. So a little over $1,200, which is not insignificant. It's a good chunk of money. So if you apply early and then they reject it, you will not get that money back. Okay. So you lose that money. So that's sort of the risk, or what you're gambling in applying early. Now, what are we telling our clients who we help to get asylum, and now we're helping them get their green card? If they want to apply early, we're saying, sure, if you want to, as long as you know there's some risk that if we send it in early, they could pick it up and decline it, and you would lose your money. You'd have to you'd have to apply again and you have to pay the fee again. That's not like per family, that's per application, per person. So it could end up, if you've got a big family, that could be a lot of money that you're out. So, but I think it's perfectly reasonable and fine and understandable if you do want to take a little bit of risk and send your application in before you reach those 12 months of physical presence. Okay. So that is what I wanted to say. It's a big announcement because it's a big change, and it will mean that some people will definitely be getting their green cards sooner than they otherwise would have under the old rules. All right. Leo Peralta says, ¿Qué porcentaje? Leo, I'm going to do a live in Spanish tomorrow. So we'll speak Spanish then. So check that out. All right. But go to my Spanish language YouTube channel, which is Asilo Aprobado. That's my Spanish language YouTube, Asilo Aprobado. And by the way, last thing before I get to the questions, we changed our name. Okay. So my law firm used to be called Manning Asylum Law, but we changed it. Now it's called Political Asylum Lawyers. Okay. That's the law firm name now, Political Asylum Lawyers. And you can find us on YouTube by searching Political Asylum Lawyers. Okay. So subscribe there. That's where I'm putting out all kinds of free trainings and giving my best tips and whatnot. So check us out at Political Asylum Lawyers on YouTube. All right. Okay, let's do some questions and answers. Tell me where you're watching from. All right. Did Rich ever get back to me on my question for him? I don't see it yet. All right. So let's start with. All right, I'm going to take one from TikTok. Can I get my green card by marriage while pending asylum? Yes. So if you've got a pending asylum case and you're waiting for your interview with USCIS and you get married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, then yeah, you can get a green card through them. Now, it's not quite that simple, especially when we're talking about a green card. There's some nuances. Okay. When we're talking about if your spouse is a green card holder, it's not quite as easy. There may be some more complications. But if it's a U.S. citizen, depending on a few other things, it should be possible. Generally speaking, yes, it's a thing that you can do, is to get a green card through marriage while you have an asylum case pending. The two cases don't affect each other. Okay. One doesn't hurt the other and one doesn't help the other. They're just completely independent, different cases. Okay. So do apply for both. Okay. I always encourage people to apply for every possible form of long-term immigration, every kind of long-term immigration benefit that you could possibly qualify for. You should apply for it. Okay. It's, you want to do everything you can to give yourself every chance to get status, long-term status in the United States. And listen, don't drop your green card case. Excuse me. Don't drop your asylum case. Don't withdraw or quit your asylum case until you have that marriage-based green card in your hand. A lot of people will say, oh, you know what? I'm married. We're going to do the marriage-based green card. I think I'm just going to stop my asylum case. I'm going to tell the asylum office to withdraw it, to close the case out. Don't do that. Okay. Don't do that. You never know what might happen. You might get divorced. Your marriage-based green card case might just get denied. You want to have your asylum as a backup, even if you're focusing on the marriage-based case. Okay. All right. All right. Petrie says, good evening from New York. Hello. The greatest city in the world, as they say in Hamilton. It is a great city. I love New York. What's the time duration, how long is it taking to get the final hearing in immigration court after a master's hearing in New York? It totally depends on your judge. Because what happens is the judges each have like their own calendar, right? And some of them, especially ones that have been around for a while, they are booked. Like they've got appointments set for years, and it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years for you to get your individual hearing with them. But then there's new judges. Oh, thank you, Abigail. There's new judges who aren't that booked yet. And so they might be a couple months or a few months out, meaning it could be really soon after your master calendar hearing. It just depends on your judge. So I can't really generalize by state or city. Okay. So sorry to not have a concrete answer on that, but it depends. Thanks. Shell says, listening on behalf of Afrikaner people coming from South Africa. I've I studied in Cape Town for a semester. In fact, I have relatives there. I have a relative in Cape Town, and I studied for a semester at UCT. I studied at the law school there. One of the best cities in the world. Cape Town is an incredibly beautiful city. Thank you for joining us. Let's go back to TikTok for the next question. Okay, hold on. Sponsor. Let's see. All right. So someone on TikTok I'm going to apply for asylum in Indianapolis or Kentucky. Is their approval rate low or high? I assume you're talking about affirmative asylum with USCIS and not in immigration court. You don't have a choice with immigration court. You could move and then ask the judge to transfer your case to your new place, but you have more choice with USCIS. You still have to apply where you live, but you can move first and then apply. So you can sort of choose with USCIS, where you want to live and therefore have your case considered. So you said Indianapolis or Kentucky. I'm going to say you know what? Kentucky might be under the Arlington Asylum Office. Indianapolis for sure is under the Chicago Asylum Office. I know that. I'm not sure about Kentucky. If it's Arlington, and if it's under Arlington, which I think it is, then it's pretty much the same. Chicago and Arlington kind of go back and forth as being sort of in the middle of the pack in terms of the approval rates. One doesn't have a huge advantage over the other. I can tell you that. Okay. I wouldn't base where you're going to live. I wouldn't base that on, which asylum office jurisdiction you want to be under, Arlington or Chicago, because they're pretty similar. If it's a choice between San Francisco and Houston, then I would say yes, go live in San Francisco. Houston, by the way, that's where I worked, the Houston Asylum Office. I was an asylum officer there, and both the Houston Asylum Office and the immigration courts in Houston, their asylum approval. Their microphone fell. Their asylum approval rates have just been plummeting. They've been dropping. Fix this microphone. Have been dropping rapidly. Okay, back when I was at the Houston Asylum Office, it was like 40-something% approval rate, and now it's like I think in the 20s. And the courts too have started to go down to where Houston immigration courts are now some of the toughest places to win asylum. It used to be clearly like Atlanta and like Charlotte, North Carolina had the reputation of being by far the hardest, but Houston is giving them a run for their money. Houston's getting tough. So, all right. This is interesting. On YouTube, Tinzen says, would really appreciate if you could make a video on how to fill out the Form I-589 online, because it's a little different than the paper ones. It is. Yeah, you're right. That would make for a good video training. Thank you for that idea. It is different. It's the same questions, but it's in a little bit different order, which can be a little bit confusing. And in fact, let me rephrase that. When I say that it's the same questions, it's basically the same. Like I have noticed there's a few that are worded differently than on the application form. So yeah, it's a little bit different, a little bit confusing. But by the way, thank you, Tinzen, for bringing this up. Let me take this opportunity to recommend that everyone apply online for asylum. If you're with USCIS, meaning if you're going to apply with USCIS, meaning you're not in deportation proceedings, then you should apply with USCIS online and not on paper. Okay, online is much better. It goes much faster, much faster. Right now, if you apply on paper, like you print out the asylum application form and you fill it out and you mail it in by paper, it's taking like 8 or 9 months to even get a receipt notice, to even get the letter from USCIS that says, okay, we've received your application and now it's pending. It's ridiculous. As where if you apply online through my USCIS, that's the name of their portal to manage your case online, then it's much faster. You get the receipt notice like sometimes the same day, usually the next day, that says, we've accepted your application, it's pending. And that just starts the whole process literally 7, 8, 9 months sooner than when you apply by paper. Okay. And then also it's just convenient to have it all online, to have everything online. You won't lose stuff. It's better online. You don't have shipping costs. It's way better. The system is still not perfect. There's still some kinks and errors in the system. which can be frustrating. But overall, I highly recommend applying online and not sending in paper forms. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's go to TikTok. Okay. So this is interesting. Bobby on TikTok says, I'm an Italian citizen and I've applied for asylum in USA. Do I have any chance of victory? It's not impossible. It's not impossible. I would say your chances are very low. You're going to go into your interview with the asylum officer going, what? Italy? No way. There's no way I'm getting asylum in this case. That's going to be their mindset going into it. And it's going to be very, very hard to change that mindset. Okay. It's going to be very hard. It's not impossible, though. It's from countries. Here's the issue. One of the things you have to show to win asylum is that the people that you fear will harm you, the persecutors that you fear, you have to show that they're either from the government or that they're people or groups that the government is unwilling or unable to control. And with developed countries, like countries from the EU, it's hard to do that. It's hard to convince an asylum officer that, look, the government doesn't want to help me, is not interested in protecting me or helping me, or is not capable of doing so. The officer is just going to be like, listen, it's Italy. I know there's some corruption. I know the police are kind of corrupt, but still, like, probably you could just go to the police and they would try to help you, right? Come on, right? Like, they have a functioning police system. They have a functioning judicial system. You're going to get a lot of pushback like that. Okay. However, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I have seen people win from even places that have a lot less corruption than Italy. Sweden. Okay. I know of a case where someone from Sweden, which is like the most democratic country in the world, and like the most developed country in the world, and the freest country in the world, won asylum, because just there are little nuances in the asylum law that make it such that, if the facts of your case are a certain way, you might be able to win, even though at first blush, at first thought, it's like, wait, Italy, give me a break. It may still be possible. So short answer is it's unlikely. It's going to be really hard, but it's not necessarily impossible, depending on the facts of your case, right? All right. Let's hide that comment. Thank you for the comment, and thank you for the question. I appreciate it. All right. So here's let me address the timeline. I haven't made a video about this in a while, about the asylum interview wait times with USCIS. Harjup says, nowadays, why is the asylum office interview taking too long? Some lawyers say it'll take 10 to 15 years for an interview. I disagree with those lawyers. I do not think it will likely take that long. Here's what's going on. For the last year and a half, 2 years, things were going very quickly. Most people were getting their interviews within 2 or 3 months after applying for asylum, thanks to what's called the last in, first out policy that USCIS switched to a few years ago. And it didn't work so well during the pandemic, but then they got back to where they were actually doing this, and they were interviewing most people very quickly, 2 or 3 months after application. That changed about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago, when USCIS changed the policy. Well, they started a policy where they said, listen, wait, we're going to prioritize Afghan cases, the cases of people from Afghanistan that were brought to the United States when the Taliban took back over. They said those people, we're going to do them first. They're going to get first priority. And so the asylum offices started assigning most of their interview slots to Afghans. And so that pushed everyone else back. And so then we went from seeing our clients getting interviews in like 2 or 3 months to 6 months or 7 or 8 months. And then some of them that applied, a while ago still have not gotten their interviews. USCIS uses a very weird system for prioritizing and scheduling interviews, such that if you don't get your interview in the first few months, there's a good chance you won't get it for years, including 10, 15 years. What I would say, though, is if you apply right now, I think there is still a decent chance of getting your interview within 2 or 3 months. But if you don't get that interview within, let's say 4 months, you're probably in that backlog that is years long. So what do you do about it? You sue the government. We've been doing this like crazy lately, and I love doing it. I love suing the government. We sue them to give our client their interview. I won't say too much about it now, but because I talk about it a lot, but um, the government's supposed to act in a reasonable time in your case and any immigration benefit that you're applying for. They have a legal duty to act in a reasonable time. If they don't do that, you can sue them, where you're asking a judge to tell USCIS, listen, it has been too long. Harjop's case has been delayed for too long. This is not a reasonable delay. Give him his interview. And it often works, especially if you've been waiting more than like 3 years for your interview. This is a very, very, very powerful tool. Okay. And no, the government will not retaliate against you. When you go to have your asylum interview, they're not going to hold it against you. The fact that you applied, the fact that you sued will not hurt your asylum case. Okay. I'm going to make a YouTube video about that. I'm going to say much more about that. Check out YouTube. It's called the channel is called Political Asylum Lawyers. Okay. That's the new law firm name, Political Asylum Lawyers. And that's the new website URL, by the way, politicalasylumlawyers.com, politicalasylumlawyers.com. By the way, I'm on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to put the phone number at the bottom, 713-909-0401. If you want to call us, if you want to talk with one of our political asylum lawyers about your situation, whether you're with USCIS or your case is pending in immigration court, if you want to give yourself the best chance possible to win asylum in the United States, I hope you'll call us and schedule a consultation with one of our lawyers so we can talk with you and see if we might be able to help you. All right. 713-909-0401. All right. Let's go back took a couple questions from TikTok. Let's go to Facebook. No, that last one was YouTube. Let's go back to TikTok. All right. Question on TikTok says, we're getting a lot of that question. All right. Oh, this is a good and important one. It says, Undream says, can you apply for asylum before your hearing interview? I assume you mean hearing in immigration court. Because here's the thing. A lot of people think they can't apply for asylum before they have an immigration court hearing. They think they have to wait and they can only apply at their immigration court hearing. Like they can physically hand over the application form at their immigration court hearing. No, you don't have to wait. You can apply at any time with the immigration court. So if you've received a letter called a notice to appear that says basically, hey, the government's trying to deport you, you're going to have to show up in immigration court. That means that you're in immigration court proceedings. Okay. That means that if you want to apply for asylum, you're doing that with the immigration court. You cannot apply with USCIS. If you send an application to USCIS, they'll reject it. They'll send it back and say, oh, we saw that you're in immigration court proceedings in our records. We can't take your application. You need to apply with the immigration court. All right. So you can do that. You can apply with the immigration court before you have any hearings in immigration court. Okay. You can mail it. You can physically mail it to the court. You can take it, maybe if you live anywhere near the court where your case is pending, the safest, easiest thing is probably just to physically take it in there yourself and hand it to the person at the window. At every immigration court, after you go through security, there's like a little window where an attendant, a person works that you can say, I want to apply for asylum. Here's my application. Okay. So that's what you can do. And you can do it before your hearing. It's really important to remember this because sometimes people will not apply thinking, oh, I have to wait. I can't apply yet. I got to wait for my first hearing, my master calendar hearing. And that master calendar hearing won't happen for like a year, more than a year after the person entered the country. What happens then? Well, if you apply after a year, you'll probably not be able to get asylum because of the 1-year filing deadline. Remember, there's a rule that says that if you want to get asylum in the United States, you have to apply during your first year in the United States. Now, it's true there's 2 categories of exceptions to that rule that a lot of people do qualify for, and so they end up getting asylum even though they applied after 1 year. But generally speaking, the general rule is you can't get asylum unless you apply during your first year. So don't wait and say, oh, I'll just wait. I can't wait. I can't apply until my first court hearing, or I'll just wait and do it at my first court hearing. No. If you want asylum, you need to apply during your first year in the United States. By the way, first year, the first day in the United States is that day that you cross the border onto U.S. soil. Very often people will come to the border whether they try to cross like illegally and get caught, or they go to a border checkpoint and turn themselves in. They say, hey, I want asylum. What happens is often they'll get detained for maybe days, maybe weeks, maybe months. Then they get let go and they think, oh, I have a year from the day that I was let go to apply for asylum. No. That's not the day that starts your 1 year asylum deadline, your clock to apply. It's the day that you came to the United States. Okay. It's an important distinction. And I've seen people lose their asylum case because of it. So don't think, oh, I've got a year from the time I got let go from detention. No, it's the date that you came to the United States. All right. On YouTube, Prunell says, hello, everyone. Hello, Prunell. Tell me where you're watching from. I've seen a couple of people, but I want to hear, yeah, tell me where you're applying from. All right. All right. This is a long one, but let's do it. It's on Facebook. Samson says, I appreciate your help. You're welcome, Samson. My pleasure. I have a pending asylum case in Fresno, California, but I recently got a job in Texas. My relatives still live in Fresno, California, so I can receive mail from USCIS at that address, but I want to move to Texas for the job without transferring my case. Is it possible to do this? I've heard that I need to give USCIS notice of any change of address within 10 days, but I'm not sure how that applies in this situation. Can you provide me guidance on what my options are? So since I assume that your case is pending with USCIS and not in immigration court. With USCIS, you're going to need to tell them, you're going to need to do the address change once you move within 10 days of moving, and you're going to need to use the Texas address. Okay. Yeah, it would not be faithful. It would not be appropriate or honest or correct to just try to keep your old address and say, oh no, that's my, I'm in Fresno, I'm in California. When in fact you're living in Texas. If you were going to Texas for a month for work, that's fine. That's not your address. You haven't moved to Texas. But if you're going to actually move there and go like live there and work there every day for the foreseeable future for an extended time, yeah, unfortunately you do need to notify USCIS. You need to do the address change, the change of address online, form AR11. And you also need to send an email to the office in California and tell them that you moved. So what happens is when you do the AR11 online, at the end of that process, you get like a PDF that's like, here's the copy of what you submitted online, the AR11. You need to save that PDF and email it to the asylum office where your case is pending now. Why? They don't know that you did the change of address because, amazingly, this is incredible, but amazingly, that system, the AR11 online system, is not connected to the asylum offices. Every other office in USCIS, the field offices and the service centers, they will know that you've moved. They'll have your address through the AR11 process. But the asylum offices just aren't connected to that system. It's ridiculous. It's super, super dumb. But they don't know. So they might, send address to your old, or send mail to your old address because they don't know that you moved. So you need to do both. You need to do the AR11 online, and you need to send the PDF of like that confirmation by email to the losing asylum office, the one where your case is currently pending, like before you move, and say, hey, I've moved. I just wanted to let you know in case you need to transfer my case to a different asylum office. Okay. Which, yeah, in your case, Samson, it's unfortunate because, as I was saying earlier, Houston's tough. Houston's gotten very, very tough to win asylum, and California is the best place. The statistics change a little bit quarter by quarter or year by year, but generally speaking, overall, over the course of the last 20 years, New York and California are the places that you want to be for asylum. Thanks for your question, Samson. All right. Shukri says on YouTube, by the way, YouTube channel is at Political Asylum Lawyers. Okay. Check out Political Asylum Lawyers on YouTube. Shukri says, if arrived in USA, what should we be doing as the first step? What's the first step after you arrive? I assume you mean like to apply for asylum. First step would be if you want help, call my office and schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers so we can talk with you about everything. But I mean, if you just want to apply, you can apply online with USCIS. Okay. You can the easiest thing to do is just Google USCIS asylum application and make sure it's a .gov address, that the email or the URL ends in .gov. That means it's a real US government website, and you can apply online. Okay. All right. So on YouTube, Prunell says, I've had my response is pending since December of 2021. I applied for asylum in October of 2020, interview in December 2021, and have not heard anything since. What should I do? All right. So remember earlier, if you caught the beginning of this live, I was talking about, or not the beginning, but a few minutes ago, I talked about suing the government to get your interview scheduled. Well, you can also sue to get your decision, because the government hasn't done its job in your case until they've given you a decision. Okay. They've done part of the job by giving you an interview, but they haven't done the whole job that they're supposed to do, but because they have to give you a decision. So the same thing applies, as I said earlier, which is if you've been waiting an unreasonable amount of time for USCIS to conclude and take action on your case, you can sue. It's called a mandamus lawsuit. And I love doing these for people. So in your particular case, Purnell, you said that you applied in October of 2020. So remember earlier I said, for me, in my opinion, I'd say it's usually you need to wait about 3 years to really be in a strong position to pressure the government to give you your interview. Well, the same applies to being in a strong position to pressure them to make them give you your decision. 3 years. So what I would say, Purnell, is I would wait until October of 2023. Then you'll be at 3 years, right? If you haven't gotten your decision, I would sue. You can, both for trying to get your interview or trying to get the decision afterwards, you can threaten to sue. Okay. You can send a letter. I think it's better if it comes from an asylum lawyer. It seems a little bit more credible. They tend to respond more when something comes from a lawyer, but you send a letter that says, if you don't give me my interview in the next 30 days, I'm going to sue you. Okay. And sometimes that works, especially if you've been waiting a long time, because they'll sometimes say, ooh, if they sue us, they're going to win because they've been waiting a long time and the judge will agree with them. So we might as well just give them the interview so we don't have to fight it. We don't want to mess with it. And they'll give you the interview. Now, here's what you should know, both about threatening to sue and suing the government. Before you do either of those things, you need to be ready. You need to have everything in order. You need to have your case documented and explained in writing, have your evidence ready, and be ready to do your interview before you sue or threaten to sue. Why? Because you might get your interview quickly. Recently, we sent one of these letters to the Miami Asylum office for one of our clients who had been waiting 5 years for their interview. And he got his interview like a week and a half after we sent that letter. I mean, it was super fast. The point is, you might not, if you sue or threaten to sue, you might not have a lot of time to get things ready. So with our clients, when people hire us to help with their asylum case, whether that's before they apply or if they apply and then later they hire us, we make sure that we do certain steps to put the case together and explain the case really well in writing to basically try to convince the officer ahead of time that they deserve asylum. So they'll have their mind made up pretty much before the interview even starts. We do these things. We send them this packet before we ever sue or threaten to sue so that everything's in order in case it goes really, really quickly, which it does sometimes. Okay. All right. This is funny. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see an ad. Someone's trying to pitch me to promote the channel. Thanks, but no thanks. Donald says, thank you. You're welcome, Donald. It's my pleasure. All right, let's go. Oh, man. So Rumia, Ohio says, hey, Brian, we're waiting for the asylum interview for 8 years. They applied in January of 2016. very good chance you will win if you sue. Let me rephrase that. Very good chance that you'll get your interview if you threaten to sue, and if that doesn't work and you actually sue, very, very good chance that you will be successful. In cases where someone's been waiting this long, when you sue, usually what happens is the government, like the lawyers for USCIS, they see this lawsuit's been filed and they have 60 days to respond and like tell the court what their position is with regard to the lawsuit. And very often during that time, they say, oh, we don't want to fight this case because Rumia is going to win, because the judge is going to agree that 8 years is not reasonable. The judge is going to say you have to give her the interview. So they're like, why would we want to spend our time and resources fighting this? Rumia, if you promise to drop the lawsuit against us, we'll give you your interview. And then the case gets settled. Usually you can get them to promise a certain amount of days, like 60 days, that they'll give you the interview in the next 60 days. And you can also get them to promise often that they'll give you the decision within a certain amount of days after the interview. And that's important because sometimes people will get the interview by suing or however, get the interview one way or another. And then they'll have to wait months or sometimes even years after the interview to get the decision. But when you sue in a mandamus lawsuit, you can often get the government to promise as part of the process that they're going to give you the interview in a certain amount of days and they're going to give you the decision within a certain amount of days. And that's really good, right? So bottom line, Rumia, is you should sue. Or you should at least threaten to sue. And if that doesn't work, you should sue because you will very likely be successful, assuming that you want to get your interview. Not everyone wants to get their interview. Some people, if they have a really weak claim and they know they're not going to win, they might not want their interview. They might be like, hey, I'm cool with just renewing my work permit every 2 years because I know if I have my interview, I'm going to lose. And I'm going to get sent to immigration court and be in deportation proceedings, and I might get deported one day. So they don't want their interview. And that's understandable. If that's you, you're cool. Just don't do anything. And you probably won't get it anytime soon because under the new scheduling policy, USCIS, if you get stuck in the backlog, you're not going to get out of it for many years because right now, the way that they're addressing people in the backlog is that basically they've only dedicated a tiny percentage of interview slots to those people, and they're getting more asylum applications every day than they are doing interviews of people in that backlog. And they're trying to prioritize the new applications first. So if tomorrow 100 people apply for asylum with USCIS, they're going to try and do all 100 of those interviews in the next 2 or 3 months. And they're not going to get to any of, or hardly any of the people in the backlog. And it's going to keep growing actually. All right. So on YouTube, some animation says, if I'm an asylee from today, I can apply for green card right away, not waiting for 1 year. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was discussing earlier, is you can apply now. And by doing so, you would be getting your spot in line, reserving your spot in line, and probably getting your green card a few months, maybe even a year earlier than you would be if you were to wait. But the risk is if USCIS happens to get to you very soon and doesn't take 3 years to get to you, you could get denied because you haven't met the physical presence requirement yet of 1 year post asylum. So there's a little bit of risk in losing your application fee. Right now, $1,225, which, by the way, USCIS has announced a bunch of different case fee types are going to go up, probably going to go up very soon. All right. So Rupak says, I completed my asylum interview in New York Asylum Office on Immigration Court. Is there a chance of grant? Still decisions pending. What will happen next? Yeah, I mean, I can't tell whether it was the Immigration Court or the Asylum Office, but either way, there's still a chance for a grant. The fact that you've maybe been waiting for a while, maybe months, maybe even a year more or multiple years, doesn't mean that you're going to get denied, okay? It's very common. People think that. They think, oh, I've been waiting for a while. That must mean they're going to deny my case. If they were going to approve me, they would have done it right away, but that's not how it works. There are multiple reasons why it takes a long time to get decisions to people, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem with your case or that they're probably going to deny it. So you can't, it doesn't mean anything good or bad. You can't derive any meaning from it, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. Waiting for 9 months after the interview, says Natalia, for the decision. That's killing me. Yeah, I'm sorry. That must be very difficult. I'm sorry that you're in this difficult position, Natalia. Okay, TikTok. Um, we just let's see, go back up here. Um, let's see. Ooh, 10 years since application date, says Michael Corey. Man, Michael, you've been waiting for do you mean an immigration court or for your asylum interview at the asylum office? Because let me make a distinction. In immigration court, you really can't do much to speed up your case. Okay. If you have emergency circumstances, you can ask the judge, you can say, hey, can you please schedule my hearing? Or if it's scheduled for years from now, you can say, hey, can you please speed it up? Some very rarely they'll say yes. Usually you can't. You will not have success with one of these lawsuits that we've been talking about, these mandamus lawsuits. That's really just for USCIS. Okay. Not for immigration court. All right. But 10 years, listen, Michael, if you want to get your interview, you almost certainly will be successful by threatening to sue. And if that doesn't work, you almost certainly will be successful if you actually sue. If you want our help with those things, give me a call. By the way, and as I was saying earlier, I strongly recommend that you take some steps before doing those things to try to make sure that you're in the best, your case is developed and in the best position possible to win. Because there's a lot that we can still do to strengthen your case. Even if you already applied, whether that was 2 months ago or 10 years ago, there's a lot that we can do to help people strengthen their case and increase their chances for success. Okay. I'm not going to go into it in detail right now, but we have a certain plan that we execute every time. And the key is this supplemental filing that we're going to send in, where we basically are giving a roadmap to the asylum officer or the immigration judge, showing them how to get to the answer yes in your asylum case in the easiest way possible. Okay. You want to do that before you threaten to sue or before you sue. Okay. All right. Purnell's in California. I was in California. I was in San Francisco last week. My first time in San Francisco for a case. I was there for an immigration case, immigration court. And I thought San Francisco was great. First time there. I thought it was awesome. Let's see. Okay. So this is an interesting question. On YouTube, Nare Yanto says, I got my work authorization last month. How long do you think I'll wait for my asylum interview? I don't know. And the fact that you got your work permit doesn't have anything to do with your asylum interview scheduling timeline. Okay. It doesn't mean that, oh, it's going to happen soon or it's not going to happen soon. It has, like, the two things have nothing to do with each other. Okay. You can't predict, oh, I'm going to get it soon because I got my work permit, or it has nothing to do with it. Okay. All right. Okay. This is a good one. On YouTube, by the way, the YouTube channel is Political Asylum Lawyers, at Political Asylum Lawyers. Go find us over there. Malik says, so my case is in the court, but my mother's case is in USCIS, and I'm in my mother's case too. If she gets the interview, am I going to be there too? Would I get the green card too? All right. So Malik, it sounds like his case is pending, or he's in immigration court. His mom is not in deportation proceedings. She has applied for asylum affirmatively with USCIS. So what he's asking is, look, if she wins, when she gets her interview, do I go to it? And if she wins, do I get asylum too, since I'm her son? The answer to both those questions is no. You don't need to go, and you will not get asylum through her, because you are not a dependent in her case. Even though she should have listed you, under the question that says list all of your children, she should have put your information. You can't get asylum or asylee status through USCIS because your case is pending in immigration court. USCIS does not have jurisdiction over you. Anyone who's in immigration court can only get asylum from an immigration judge. Now, if you, Malik, were to get your case dismissed, which may be possible, then you would no longer be in immigration court, And then you could be a dependent in your mom's case. She would need to ask the asylum office to officially add you as a dependent to the case and send in a couple of items to do that and a request. But they would say, okay, now Malik's a dependent. And then you would need to go to her asylum interview. And then if she wins asylum, you would get asylee status at the same time through her. But as long as you have a case, as long as you are in deportation proceedings in immigration court, no, you will not, you cannot benefit from her case, unfortunately. They're like two separate worlds. There's the affirmative asylum world with USCIS, and there's the defensive asylum world with the immigration court. All right. Some animation talked about, can you explain the new 1-year memo rule? Are you talking about that you can apply for a green card less than 1 year after winning asylum? If so, go back and watch the replay of this, because that's what I talk about for like 10 minutes at the beginning of this live. So once it's up on YouTube and Facebook, go watch this. All right, because that's what I discussed at the beginning. All right. Adil says, Mahmoud says, can I get asylum from Pakistan in the U.S. nowadays? Maybe. You can get asylum from any country. I was talking earlier about, even Italy, or even I've seen from Sweden. It's rare. It's rare from those very developed countries. But from Pakistan, I mean, there are definitely issues in Pakistan, right? It's not without its problems. And so people from Pakistan, yes, do pretty frequently win asylum in the United States. But it's not as simple as saying, I'm from Pakistan, therefore I'm going to get asylum. There are people from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Sudan, even North Korea, who will apply for asylum here and lose, not win. Because it's not as simple as just, I'm from a country where there's bad things happening. You have to show that you actually meet each of the requirements to win asylum under U.S. asylum laws. Okay. Okay. All right. So Fethi Muhammad says on YouTube at our Political Asylum Lawyers channel, says, hello, Brian. I have a pending asylum case with the New Orleans office. I live in Memphis, Tennessee. So how can you attend the interview with me? And will my interview be in Memphis or New Orleans? It'll probably be in New Orleans. I don't think Memphis is what's called a circuit ride location. There's certain offices or certain cities where USCIS asylum offices will send out an asylum officer from their office to these other locations, to the USCIS field office there, and do some interviews with people who live in that area. I don't remember Memphis being on that list. So I think it'll be in New Orleans. Can I attend it with you? We help people all over the country. All right. By the way, let me put that phone number back up on Facebook and YouTube in case you want to give us a call. We help people all over the country. So we're based in Houston, Texas, but we have clients all over. We have clients on the East Coast, the West Coast, and in between. We have clients in Tennessee and Louisiana. So yeah, we can definitely support you in an interview in New Orleans, or if it ends up being in Memphis, there too. So if you want to talk with us about your case and how we might be able to help you, then give us a call. Okay. That number is 713-909-0401. All right. Give us a call and schedule an asylum strategy session with us. Okay. All right. 1 second. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that comment. Oof. This is tough. Fatih says, my asylum interview has been rescheduled and it's been 1 year. Is there any update about that? That's tough. They do usually try to do the reschedules very soon. Like if they say, hey, your interview's being rescheduled, usually they do try to reschedule it within like a month, but that didn't happen in your case, right? So What can you do? Well, unfortunately, you're kind of in the same position as everyone has been waiting a long time, which is there's not much you can do other than if you've been waiting for like 3 years since you applied for asylum, not since they rescheduled, but since you applied, I would say you should consider threatening to sue. And then if that doesn't work, suing. Okay. Um, all right. Last, we'll take a question. Okay. Yeah. This is a good, an important one on TikTok. What can I do if my A number is not showing up on the EOIR website? If you are in immigration, well, if you came to the border and applied for asylum, you almost certainly received the letter that says, hey, the government's trying to deport you. You need to go to immigration court, right? As I said earlier, if that happened to you, the only place you can apply for asylum is with the immigration court. You cannot apply with USCIS because you're in deportation proceedings. Or more accurately, you're in deportation proceedings once that document called notice to appear gets filed with the immigration court. Okay. That's the moment that triggers, that says, okay, this is the beginning of deportation proceedings. You're in deportation proceedings. And what happens though is some people, like the person on TikTok who asked this question, for some people, that document doesn't get filed with the immigration court. So if you are thinking, hey, I'm supposed to have a case in immigration court, like the notice to appear might even say, you need to go to this immigration court on this date at this time. But when you go to use your A number to look it up on the EOIR, that's the name of the letters for the immigration court system. When you look it up, it says no case found for this number. What's going on? Why is your case not showing up? Well, that probably almost certainly means that the ICE officers who created the notice to appear simply haven't sent it over to, or it could be CBP, simply haven't sent it over to the immigration court. Okay. They're just overwhelmed. They have too much work and they just get behind and they just forget to send these letters over, these notices to appear over. And so your case is sort of in limbo. The most important thing I can tell you about this is that if you want to apply for asylum and your case is not showing up with the immigration court, you can't apply with the immigration court. They'll reject it. They'll say, you don't have a case with us, even though you have this letter that says that you have to go to court, which you should go to, by the way. Long story, but you should go to that. At that hearing, they're going to say, oh, wait, there's no case pending against you. ICE will end up filing it eventually, but we can't move forward today because there's no case against you. But the point of what I was going to say is, you can't apply with the immigration court in that circumstance. Instead, you have to apply with USCIS on paper, which is annoying, instead of online. And that's annoying because it takes forever. It's taking 8, 9, 10 months to get the receipt notice to sort of put the case in motion when you have to apply on paper with USCIS. So it's a little bit complicated, unfortunately. I think you should get a lawyer to help you sort this out and make sure that you apply the right place at the right time. Okay. But that's how that works in general. All right. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this live. It's a pleasure engaging with all you guys and answering your questions. Some great questions, really interesting stuff. Thank you for participating. Listen, if you want to talk with us, with one of our asylum lawyers, give us a call. Okay. And we'll be happy to see if we can help you. All right. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a political asylum lawyer. My law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and it's my pleasure and truly my honor to support you in your asylum journey. So until next time, I look forward to seeing you soon, and stay in touch. All right. Give us a call if you want help, and we'll see you online. If not, soon, I hope. All right. Take care, guys. Bye. Thank you.